This is the New York Attorney General Letitia James who brought this civil lawsuit. Let's listen.
Trump and the other defendants have committed persistent and repeated fraud. Last week, we proved that in our motion for summary judgment. Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here. And again, justice will prevail. Thank you.
New York Attorney General, and she made no bones about it. No matter how powerful or no matter how much money you think you have, which I thought was interesting, no one is above the law.
That's a good catch there. She said, you think you have, which is part of this.
That's right. It is a question over whether or not Donald Trump and his family inflated their worth, which the judge has decided they did. He has already done a summary judgment on this, saying they did. Can you give us some sense of what it will look like in the courtroom when the testimony happens and when the witnesses take the stand? And if Donald Trump takes the stand, what happens?
Yeah, so any testimony sort of proceeds in three parts. There's the direct examination where his own lawyers or whoever's put him on the stand gets to question him. Then cross-examination, the other side gets to question him. And then usually there's some sort of rebuttal where the first side gets to come back. There's actually an interesting question here. Who's going to try to put him on the stand? Will the AG's office, they put their case on first, they're the plaintiffs. Will they say we call to the stand Donald Trump? Or will they give that a pass? And if they do give it a pass, will Donald Trump's team then say we call to the stand Donald Trump? So there's a little bit of strategic maneuvering happen here. But this is an open public trial. This is open to the public. The doors are open. I'm sure the courtroom is more than overfilled. You know, I have a theory that I think we should all be able to see it on TV, but it is an open public hearing. There will be direct examination, cross-examination, and then redirect examination. And bystanders, witnesses, sometimes can watch. By the way, it's worth noting, judges sometimes say, if you're a potential witness in this case, I don't want you in the courtroom. I don't want you, let's say Michael Cohen hypothetically, I don't want you seeing Donald Trump's testimony because I don't want you tailoring your testimony around that. That's called a sequestration order. And so we may see something along those lines.
And just to add also, the witnesses are under oath, right? So they take an oath to tell the truth under threat of penalty of perjury, right? So they just want to add that in. So that's part of the calculation, certainly for Trump's lawyers, of choosing to put him on the stand.
But let us talk also really quickly, as we just heard from the New York Attorney General herself. This morning, Donald Trump's team, I'm going to see if it's a campaign thing. I believe it's a campaign thing. They put out a statement just attacking and eviscerating, trying to attack Letitia James. Literally, it was called Meet Letitia James. Public statements that are made outside of the courtroom. He has similarly attacked the judge overseeing this case, calling it a sham, calling the judge unfair, unhinged, and vicious. This is not a jury trial. This is a bench trial. The impact of that, Jessica, what does the impact of these public statements have as we head into this?
It's still potentially injurious to the administration of justice. You know, the judge could give him, at a minimum, I think, a very stern warning today and say, stop doing this. So the question will be, is that going to be something that the judge actually addresses at the start of the proceedings today? This has been a long, steady stream of these kinds of attacks on the judge personally, as well as on the Attorney General. And I will be interested to see whether the Attorney General's office raises this with the judge at the beginning of the proceedings, especially if Mr. Trump is in the room, and whether the judge decides to raise it on his own.
All right, again, we have now seen them exit the FDR. They're getting ever so closer to the courtroom. Donald Trump arriving here for opening statements in this civil case. We just heard from the Attorney General moments ago. We'll see if he takes the chance to speak before going in. I don't think we necessarily anticipate that, but you never know. In the meantime, I want to bring Dana Bash into this conversation. Dana, we've been noting all morning long, yes, this is a legal proceeding, but in many respects, this is a campaign event because Donald Trump is choosing to be there. He's coming from Iowa. He was in Iowa yesterday, spent last night in New York, going to this campaign event today. In a way, it proves the point he's been trying to make is there's no daylight. You know, the sun can't shine through almost on any of the other candidates, Republican candidates, no matter how hard they try.
And there is no opportunity for a spectacle that he will give up. In general, but particularly at this case, when this kind of moment is a central part of his campaign for re-election, for election again, I should say. And it's a central part of his campaign to galvanize Republican voters, which according to every poll, national and more importantly, state poll, is working. His numbers have continued to go up with every indictment that he has faced. That's on the criminal charges. This, as you've been noting all morning, is a civil trial. But I want to go back to what Kate was talking about with this Trump campaign statement, very lengthy statement attacking Letitia James, because it plays into the notion of him as a martyr and him going after what he perceives as his political enemies. And Jessica was right, of course, that this is going to be a question legally in the courtroom about his behavior, both against Letitia James and against the judge. But if you just look at it from the point of view of his political campaign, he makes point after point, using quote after quote, of Letitia James as a candidate for office herself. Remember, she was elected as Attorney General. She is a proud Democrat. And so he is trying to turn that very much into the notion of witch hunt. It is different from, let's say, a Jack Smith on the federal level, who is apolitical and nominated because of that or appointed because of that. This is a very different kind of thing, and he clearly feels that it is much easier to make the political argument that this is just Democrats coming after him in a way because they can.